Well, I wanted to start talking first. You started off working with Bobby Darin.
Right.
Did you see Beyond the Sea by any chance?
No, I didn't do Beyond. No, I haven't seen it. No, it's the Kevin Spacey movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How come you didn't see it?
Well, I've been busy. I haven't gone to the movies.
Oh.
Yeah, I do want to see it. We just been on the road so much, haven't had a chance to go to the movies.
Fair enough. How was it touring with him? Was it as big a thing as the movie says he was?
He was. Well, I don't know what not having seen the movie, I don't know what you referring to. But
well, I mean, it really builds him up as this big, huge star, and I mean, for me being a young man, I'm not really too familiar with how it was back then.
He was quite a big star for a while. Yeah, after Mac the Knife, he was really big. I mean, he could fill up big rooms, like 500, 1,000, 1,500 seaters all the time.
Wow.
And we played, there was a circuit where we played in Las Vegas. We played the Flamingo Hotel, and we played Harrah's and Tahoe and Reno, and the Latin Casino in Philadelphia, the Copacabana in New York, and I forget the name of it. I guess it was the Coconut Grove in L.A.
Were you playing the 12 strings back then?
I just played 12 string behind him, and I stood behind him. I stood next to him, and we shared a spotlight, and it was kind of like a duo. We did like an Everly Brothers thing, where,
Cool.
Yeah, and I sang harmony and played 12 string, and he did the leads.
Why always 12 string?
He wanted that 12 string. He liked the sound of it.
Nice, and is that why you stuck with it all through your career?
No, I liked it too. I mean, I'd gotten into it earlier with Pete Seeger and Leadbelly, and it was just a really cool folk instrument for solo performers because it puts out more sound.
We'll talk about the youth movement in the 60s then. Everything was changing. Music had a lot to do with it. What was it like being right in the center of it all?
It was very exciting. We felt like we were in the middle of a revolution, and I guess it was kind of a cultural revolution of a kind. But it didn't pan out the way we thought. We thought we could change the world, and end war and everything, but that didn't seem to be the case.
You think it'll ever end?
Human nature is what it is, and it's very strong. It's hard to, it's ideal that people could live in peace and harmony, but it's never seemed to happen, so I wouldn't bet on it.
It seems like the music industry was much more family-based, rather than the way it is now, with a lot of jamming going on backstage, and all the bands seem to be much tighter.
Yeah, we were all friends. I mean, the Beatles and the Stones, and we hung out, and the Beach Boys, and all the Mamas and Papas, and everybody. We all knew each other, and we hung out together when we were around. I got into a jam session with Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton one night in New York.
Oh, wow.
That was pretty cool.
Were they just going back and forth soloing?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you think it'll ever go back to being that way, the music industry? It seems like it's kind of, segregated in different groups now, and it's not as condensed as it was back then.
Well, I think that what's happened is it's just become much larger. The population has exploded, and so have the number of people in the entertainment business, and it's never going to get back to the smaller numbers because there are just too many people in it now.
Mm-hmm. How influential was Jack Kerouac on you?
He was an influence on the whole beat movement, and I was part of that. I was hanging out in the beat coffee houses and everything, and I love the whole thing, the freedom of it, the kind of, it was like rock and roll in a way. It was a rebellious kind of thing. And it was a good way to get into a different world than the one that our parents had imposed on us.
And what kind of world was that?
Well, it's just a middle class, clean cut, haircut thing.
Do you think that there were things to rebel against back then? I guess there still are now. But it seems that everyone was kind of changing then, and now it's, I don't know. I just wish it was more like the 60s myself. I keep reading about it and wishing I'd been there.
How old are you?
22.
Okay, yeah. So, right. Well, there are a lot of people now, piercing and tattoos and all that. That's the same sort of thing, only in a different direction. Like, that's spike haircuts and everything.
Think it's going too far?
That's just different. It's just like something different, Something to shock and to indicate that you're not part of the mass civilization.
Fair enough. You recorded Mr. Tambourine Man. Did Bob Dylan ever sit down and play it with you guys? Did you ever talk to him before recording it?
Yeah, we did both. He came to our rehearsal when we were working it up, and he liked it. And we played him several of our other songs, his songs that we had rearranged, and he didn't recognize them.
Oh, really?
But he liked them. And his friend Bobby Newer said, "Wow, you can dance to it, man." So they thought it was cool. They did like it. And yeah, if you look at the, well, you probably won't see the vinyl now, but it's on the back of the Mr. Tambourine Man CD. There's a picture of Bob jamming with us.
Oh, nice. I was watching this Bob Dylan movie. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's just a movie of him, playing the folk shows, and everyone would sit there and not say a word, just be completely silent. Was it like that at your shows?
Yeah, it was. No, I mean, not the Byrds. The Byrds, we had a lot of screaming girls.
Oh, nice.
Just like the Beatles. I mean, yeah, there was a constant screaming thing going on during the whole show.
Why do you think that was?
Little girls like to scream. They get excited and they scream.
They don't do that anymore, though. It just seems like, I'm not sure. It just seems like you guys were like superheroes almost to them.
Yeah, well, we were up there. We had a couple of number ones, and they like to scream. I don't know. It's I think they still scream at some artists. Haven't you seen bands that they scream at?
Oh, I guess like NSYNC and that kind of stuff. But you guys were real music as opposed to what they scream at now.
Right. But the phenomenon of girls screaming still goes on.
Fair enough. Yeah. I heard you recorded your entire new album on a laptop.
I did. Actually, except for one track. The first track, we went to a studio in Nashville, and I expected to use a 24-track tape recorder and a board. And we got there, and they were using a computer. Oh. And they had a little mouse, and their little console. And I said, I'm paying $6,000 to record on a computer. I could do this for free at home. So we recorded the one track in Nashville, and I came home and did the rest of them on my computer. And I did it on a laptop just to prove a point that it could be done. And Dell was gracious enough to donate a desktop replacement laptop.
Nice.
An Inspiron 8200. And just to punctuate that, I just recorded with Dolly Parton last week in Nashville. Wow. And they're using a computer now. Everybody is.
Yeah. Do you like the way it's changed from analog now to the way we have all the digital and Pro Tool stuff?
Oh, yeah. I love it. It's the way to go. I mean, with tape, you used to have to go back and punch in and do it over and over again. And now, if you like something, you can clip and paste it over to the chorus in the next section. And if it's a little out of tune, you can just tweak it and pull it up into tune. You don't have to redo it. And, it just makes editing such a breeze. It's wonderful.
Do you think it helps out with people who aren't as talented in music?
I suppose it could be a tool for people. I mean, it's possible now to make music without knowing how to play music, using GarageBand or various other programs you can do. But I think it still helps if you know music and you can play music to make really good-sounding music.
Cool. With all the computer stuff, it also comes out with downloading. How do you feel about that kind of stuff?
I'm very much in favor of downloading. I think it's a promotion for the artist. I think people who download an artist's material like the artist, and they go and buy their products, and they go to their concerts, and they support the artist in other ways. And if you look at the history of how record companies deal with artists, that artists rarely see many royalties from the record companies anyway. So the only advantage to not downloading is for the record companies, not for the artists.
Do you think it's going to give a little bit of a shift? Maybe there'll be more indie labels, people will be making more money?
It's definitely going that way. I started my own label last year, and I've been wanting to do it for 10 years, but finally got it all together. I was just reading an article by Amy Mann, and she started her own label. Everybody's doing it now. It's the only way to go, and that way you have total artistic control, and you get some money from the actual product that you sell. Yeah.
Do you think it's going to get rid of the album concept, though? And just be more singles like it was back when?
I'm still making albums. I still do... and my latest project is a 4-CD box set of the Folk Den. It's a project I have on the Internet. I don't know if you noticed it.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And I've been doing it for 10 years now. I've been putting up MP3s for free download since 1995.
That's the beginning of the Internet almost.
Like when you were 12 years old. So, right, it was the beginning of the Internet. And it's coming up on the 10th year, so to commemorate that, we decided to do a 4-CD, 100-song box set of new recordings of all these wonderful traditional songs.
Oh, wow. So are you seeing Paul Simon songs in there? Byrds songs?
No, these are all traditional songs.
Oh, like way back when, like Guthrie.
Yeah, before Woody Guthrie, like hundreds of years old songs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
The reason I started the folk den was because exactly what your reaction was, that the people regarded Simon and Garfunkel as folk music, or, perhaps Jewel, or maybe Sheryl Crow, or anybody who played an acoustic guitar as a folk singer. And they didn't realize that there were these songs that were in existence hundreds of years ago, that the traditional side of folk music was getting lost. So I started the folk den to preserve these old songs.
Nice. That's good to hear. I got a list of 20 names here. You can just give me either one-word answers, or if you have a good story about them or something like that. Something that pops into your head when you hear the name. David Crosby.
He's a very talented harmony singer, and we worked in the Byrds together, and he was a wonderful high harmony singer. Came up with very creative parts.
Cool. Graham Parsons.
Graham Parsons was a good influence in getting us to go to Nashville and record an entire album of country music. We've dabbled in country music prior to that, but we've never done a whole album of it. And when he came along, we all went to Nashville and recorded The Sweetheart of the Rodeo.
Cool. Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan is one of the best songwriters in the world, and probably in human history. I think he did wonderful things for both the folk genre and for rock and roll when he decided to get into rock, because he expanded the concepts that were allowed in rock. They used to be very simplified and love song oriented, and he got into much more detail.
Gene Clark.
Gene Clark was a great songwriter, very much influenced by Bob Dylan. He had a good sense of melody and a good sense of lyrics, and he wrote some wonderful songs.
Cool. Tom Petty.
Tom Petty's a good friend and a person who makes great music. He was influenced by the Byrds, but he went off into his own thing, and he's done some wonderful work over the years. I think my favorite album of his is Full Moon Fever.
Paul Simon.
Paul Simon, Simon and Garfunkel, a wonderful duo. I worked when I was a studio musician in New York on a track they did before they were even called Simon and Garfunkel. They were called Tom and Jerry at the time.
Cool. James Taylor.
I love James Taylor's work. He's an incredible songwriter and singer, and in the folk vein, he's really he gets that folksy kind of casual feel to his material. Makes you feel comfortable.
Elvis Presley.
Elvis was the reason I got into rock and roll. In the first place, I started playing a guitar at age 14 because I heard Heartbreak Hotel on my transistor radio, and it really got me going.
Cool. John Lennon.
Loved John Lennon's work. He was an incredible singer, songwriter. I loved his work with McCartney and his solo work. I thought he was an amazing talent, and I really miss him.
Paul McCartney.
Yeah, well, Paul and John did some great work together. Paul is still out there doing it, and still sounds great.
Cool. Miles Davis.
Miles Davis helped get the Byrds a contract on Columbia Records.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was over. He had an agent named Benny Shapiro, and he was Benny was a friend of our manager's. One night we went over to Benny's house to audition for him, hoping to get some local gigs in Los Angeles, and Benny had a daughter upstairs. A teenage girl came running down when she heard us singing, and she loved it. She said, Daddy, who's that? And she thought like somebody cool like the Beatles were in her living room. So the next day, Miles came over to see his agent, and Benny was talking to Miles, and he said, a funny thing happened. These kids came over last night, and they were auditioning, and my daughter flipped out. She thought they were really great. And Miles said, well, kids know stuff like that. So he called up Columbia Records, and he said, that band you've been looking for, I think I got them for you.
Wow.
And they signed us based on his recommendation.
That's awesome. Eric Clapton.
I love Eric Clapton's work. He's got a really sweet sense of melody, and his style is very, very smooth and cool. I love his playing a lot.
Cool. Mick Jagger.
Mick is an incredible talent, the way he was able to interpret the Delta blues and the work of Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters and all the blues singers that America had forgotten about and didn't really even know about. And he he brought it up to the forefront of music.
Cool. Brian Wilson.
I love Brian's writing. He's an incredible genius when it came to like Pet Sounds was a wonderful, wonderful work, and he's still doing good work. He's an amazing producer and songwriter and singer.
Neil Young.
Yeah, Neil Young. I love his. He's a wild card. He's like got this old, voice that sounds sort of unique, and the way he plays guitar is really amazing. It's and he kind of throws caution to the wind when he plays and sings.
Cool. Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, Hendrix was a very imaginative guy. He started out, when I first heard him, he was Little Richard's lead guitar player.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did some gigs with Little Richard in L.A., and Jimmy was working for Little Richard at the time. And then he branched off on his own. He went to England, and he got to be, he turned into Jimi Hendrix, what we later knew as the guy with the flames and breaking up guitars and everything.
Johnny Cash.
Oh, man, Johnny, the Man in Black. He was, when I was about 15, I learned Folsom Prison Blues and thought he was so cool. Yeah, I always liked his work.
Cool. George Harrison.
Yeah, George was another sweet melodic guitar player. He turned me on to the Rickenbacker 12-string in the movie A Hard Day's Night. He played it, and so all the Byrds went to see that movie, and it came out of there and got a Rickenbacker because of the movie.
Elvis Costello.
Elvis is really a cool guy, and he's a good friend. I've known him for about 20 years, and we've worked together, and I just love his writing, and he's so brilliant. He's one of the brightest people I've ever met. I mean, you don't want to call him long distance because he's going to talk to you for a couple of hours about things that you can barely understand. I mean, he's just an amazing guy.
Cool. One more. Roger McGuinn.
I don't have I can't talk about myself.
Just one word. First thing that pops in your head when you hear your name.
Working musician.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Okay.